Well, good morning. We'll call this morning's meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to add a little bit of discussion, and it could probably fall under the area of under item number 16, the 2024 budget update, and that is the concern that I have regarding the SRO budget impacts with what's happening with the cancellation of those contracts.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve with the addition.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the budget with the addition. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any citizens to be heard or that are not on the agenda? Wish to speak? Okay. Anybody online?
We have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Approve the payment of bills and vouchers.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the bills and vouchers. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
With that, we'll move right into the agenda. Budget presentation with Lake Agassiz Regional Library lists. Take us through that. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on Lake Agassiz Regional Library and answer any questions you might have about the budget request for 2024. All of you should have received one of these year-in reviews of Lake Agassiz Regional Library. It has the map on it, just as a reminder that we provide library service in 7 counties in the area. Within those 7 counties, we have 13 branch public libraries and 9 link sites. And of course, within Clay County, we provide library services in 4 communities, including Barnesville, Holly, Moorhead, and Ulen. And I just want to talk a little bit about the Ulen link site. The Ulen link site is not identified as a public library by the state of Minnesota because it's open only 9 hours a week. But Amy Nelson is the link site coordinator in Ulen, and she does a phenomenal job, and I think it's worth highlighting some of the projects she's been working on lately. In Ulen, these link sites are only open the link site is only open about 9 hours a week. We only have about 500 books or items to check out in our link sites. The whole idea behind the link site is that it is a link to the bigger regional library system. So anything you would want from a bigger regional library system through our courier system, you can receive at a link site. So Amy Nelson has done an excellent job reaching out to daycare providers in Ulen, but she's also created really great partnerships with the local school for both programs and providing other services to the school. She's also done a tremendous job working with veterans in the area, and just recently I learned about a new dairy operation right outside of Ulen that employs many Hispanic individuals, and Amy's been working closely with the liaison from that farm to ensure that the educational and the social needs are met of those employees. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Amy Nelson in Ulen because she's really a model for our region. Of course, in Holly and Barnesville, those are our public libraries. They are doing a great job providing services in their communities as well. One project I wanted to highlight is we did recently receive a grant. Lake Agassiz Regional Library received a grant from the Otto Bremer Trust Foundation for $30,000 to recarpet the Barnesville Public Library and also paint the interior. And the Barnesville Community Fund has agreed to help us raise extra funds through Giving Hearts Day this year to provide some extra or some new furnishings and fixtures for that location as well. So we're excited about the possibilities in Barnesville with that grant. In Moorhead, we are so excited, of course, about the new Moorhead Community Center and Public Library. It will also be the home to the Lake Agassiz Regional Library headquarters. Construction on this project will begin in the spring of 2024, and we're hoping to occupy the building around fall of 2025. It just cannot get here soon enough. It sure is exciting. We're currently in the schematic design phase, and we'll be entering the design development phase soon. So that project is just moving right along. That project is going to be such a great amenity for those who live in the city of Moorhead, but also we have an awful lot of Clay County residents outside the city limits of Moorhead who will be using this facility as well. So we sure are excited about that project. All of the Clay County locations are doing very well. I provided the year in review statistics. This is actually for our entire region, but we are back up past pre-pandemic numbers, and these numbers are actually from 2022, but in 2023, all of our numbers for all of our services continue to increase. We're living in a time right now where everything costs a little bit more, and during times like this is when people really start to rely on their public library. We are still seeing a lot of people use our public computers across the region. Not everyone has a computer at home. Not everyone has internet access at home. Not everyone has unlimited data. So people are still coming into their public libraries, and they're still checking out books. They're still reading. Not everyone goes on a vacation. Their vacation is sometimes reading a good book. So if you haven't been to a library lately, I encourage you to visit your local library, sign up for a library card if you haven't already, and attend one of our fall program events that we will be offering. We have a great lineup of programs. Does anyone have any questions about the 4 locations in Clay County or about Lake Agassiz Regional Library Services?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, not a question. I'm on the board representing the commission. And a couple of things that really struck me about our library system here. One is it really is a countywide asset. Any resources we've got in this area can be shared. And as Liz pointed out, some of our rural locations are an access point for people in those communities to get the full resources of the library system. Something else that I think is really important, particularly as we watch this go through the pandemic, this is an access point for a lot of people of limited resources. This is where they can apply for jobs. This is where they can look for jobs. This is where they can look for education to get certification that will allow them to find employment. It's even an access point for the legal system. The staff at Moorhead Library that I've seen firsthand, they work with people who lack computer skills but need computer access, get help from these folks. We are so lucky. One of the things we really looked at as a board is the quality of the staff we have and the need for not even competitive, but simply reasonable salaries. And there has been, so any increases you see are generally the increases necessary to retain staff to get salaries up to where they can stay. So I think it's a good budget. It's been done carefully, and certainly I think this is something we can continue to support.
Okay. Go ahead.
Any questions or?
Have they started the sales tax, or are you getting funds from that?
For the building project?
Yeah,
Yep. As of last April?
okay.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead then with your presentation.
Well, if there's nothing further, we don't have a motion.
No.
Disregard.
Any questions about the budget or?
Ms. Lynch, I do have a question. I see on your vehicle expenses, you have reduced it, and I'd like to know your magic answer to spending less on vehicles, but do you have a different arrangement with that vehicle as to why there's a reduction?
We had a vehicle at one time, and we no longer have a vehicle.
All right, so,
And a lot of travel has been eliminated because of Zoom, and
okay,
so
thank you.
I guess Zoom is the answer.
Yeah. Or selling your vehicles.
They're selling vehicles, there you go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
nothing further?
All good, thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, request approved to replace vacated LPN position for Detox. Troy?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yeah, today I'm here to ask for approval to replace a vacated LPN position for Detox. It's a budgeted position, and we'll need it for our withdrawal management program.
Did we just have one last week, too?
That's correct, yeah. This one was some personal issues and prevented her from getting to work, so,
Oh, I see,
yeah.
okay. Very good.
Do you anticipate there'll be any savings with the two openings?
Very little. She was, had just went on step 2, so.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the replacement.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to replace the LPN position. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, request approval to advertise for bids for the Department of Motor Vehicle project based on the updated design development estimate. Steve, Dan, you're gonna help us out with that?
I'm all by myself today,
All
yep.
by yourself, very good. Go for it.
Yeah, so we're looking to get approval to go out and get public bids for the DMV building. We submitted the estimate that was done a couple weeks back for approval. We're pretty confident in the numbers and feel pretty good about going out, and the plans are coming to us today, so we're ready to go.
Very good, okay.
I will make a motion to approve that we advertise for bids for our DMV project.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Give us a good start on the program then. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, I guess, no one, all right. Very good, okay.
And Mr. Chair, just from a timeline perspective, they're planning to bring those bids to this commission on October 10th, correct?
Third, I think.
3rd. Bid opening is the 3rd.
Oh, yep, correct.
Bid opening is the 3rd. They bringing the bids here is the 10th, and then hopefully start on the 11th.
We're gonna give it our all.
That's great.
Well, this will give you time to get going this year yet,
Yeah.
hopefully. Okay, we'll go to the next thing, request approval to accept quotes for site and utility work for the DMV project.
So, along with going out, we've already went out for quotes on 2 of the packages, which is package 31 and 33, so that we could get started in September instead of waiting till October. And these are the dirt work and site utility packages. So we reached out to different bidders in the area and got 3 quotes. Low earthwork person was Earthwork Services, and the low site utilities contractor was Johnson Shook Excavate.
Steve, we should probably do these
I
separately.
would prefer to have them in 2 motions.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'll make a motion to approve the low quote from Earthwork Services to complete the earthwork for the DMV project in the amount of $174,460.
Second.
You got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Have you worked with these companies before?
Yeah, yes, we have. Both are actually, as luck may have it, are the ones working on the withdrawal center next door, so.
Very good, okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd move the low quote of Johnson Truck Excavating to complete the site utilities for the DMV project.
I'll second.
You got a motion and a second to approve for site utilities for Johnson Shock Excavating. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Just a comment, I am encouraged to see so many local companies bidding on this. It's always a good indicator of the local jobs that are out there, so I appreciate that.
I think it'd be a great job for everybody in the two communities. It's the right size and bidding at the right time of year, so I think good bids. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
So, if I just have, so I did notice here, so that the site utilities was slightly higher than what you had
Yep,
here, right?
yep.
How did the earthworks one compare? Oh, that's also.
That was a little bit higher,
Okay.
about a couple $1,000s.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll go into the Greater Fargo Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. Update from Joe. Turn the mic on there.
I will do that. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to provide you with an update on the activities of the GFMEDC. There are three things I wanted to share, and unfortunately, and I apologize, I didn't get information in your packets. I was with my family in the Boundary Waters and last week, and whoever's been up there before would know that you don't have a lot of reception, but really enjoyed ourselves and very happy to make it back from spending a week there. But I have a couple materials that I would like to pass out, and then a PowerPoint that I'll quickly go through and share with you, if that's okay. What I'd like to cover are kind of at three levels of information. The first is in a brochure or two-page document that kind of looks at the economic impacts of our work to the marketplace. The second is a listing of some of the activities that our organization has been involved in, providing services to businesses and to the region, especially in Clay County and in Moorhead. And then the third is some information that I had the opportunity to share with Mr. Larson and Commissioner Embinger about 2 weeks ago that took a look at kind of the economic breakout of not only our work, but how the economy has kind of been operating within our metro area. And the reason that that last piece and what this PowerPoint covers is important is we wanted to know as the organization how the economy is functioning and what is fair and proportional in terms of the relationship of both funding and governance of the EDC. I'll say on the front end that next week on Thursday, the EDC board will be discussing and likely voting on a change of governance for the organization going into 2024. And I'll just talk about that briefly at the end and obviously leave this open for a dialogue versus a monologue. But one of the things that you'll see is in that document that talks about the economic impacts and the projects. Over the last 5 years or so, there's been about $3 billion of impact to our regional economy. And obviously, we're a regional organization. We're agnostic. We serve both Clay and Cass County with a focus on primary sector companies. On the left-hand side, you'll see the list of the projects that we've worked on throughout the region over the past 5 years or so. I've been here 5 years, and there's about 120 different projects that we've been able to assist companies with. The economic impact of that is at least $3 billion. There are 11 or 12 projects in this calendar year that haven't been calculated in terms of that impact. But we do know that that impact is felt across all the industry sectors you see on the right-hand side. And obviously, many of those businesses reside in Clay County, as well as obviously across the region. And we can't be specific on which businesses receive what impact, but we know that that impact is felt across the entire region. It's felt in property taxes and sales taxes and the things that are important to you as county commissioners. So kind of at a what I call the WIFM level, what's in it for us, that document kind of describes at a macro level why we exist as an organization, why you invest in us to do the work that we do. And then this two-pager just describes various activities that we've been involved in this year. We provided you a similar document last year. It really highlights, it doesn't cover everything, but it really highlights our work in business development, our outreach to the existing primary sector companies in Clay County, how we're engaged with them, how we're supporting them. Also our business recruitment activities. So as we are looking to recruit more companies into the region, who are these businesses? How are we supporting them? How are we making sure there's available land for development across the region? But specifically noted here, some property in the Makara Industrial Park that we're marketing nationally and globally. And obviously working closely with DEED and our partners here in the county and at the city level. And then there's a number of different entrepreneurial development initiatives that are noted here that we've been involved in here in the county and in the state of Minnesota. So I wanted you to be, at a high level aware of our engagement as a team as it relates to your constituency within the region. A couple other items to note on that second page is the community development efforts. As many of you know, and thank you for those who attended our annual meeting this year, held here in the county in Moorhead. That was a terrific event and really appreciate those of you who were able to attend that. But specifically on the workforce development front, we know that the biggest challenge is workforce. We got like 8,000 open positions in our region right now. And filling those open positions is going to add economic activity, both to individual businesses and to the tax base. We're involved in two very large workforce recruitment strategies. Those are actually being funded by the state of North Dakota primarily, about $1 million of investment. But the benefit's going to be to the entire region as we reach out and talk to people in positions in healthcare and manufacturing, and it'll be others as well, to inform them what our region has to offer and to try to get them to show some interest. And then once they show interest, they're going to find where they want to live. About 90%, 85 to 90% of the economic activity of the region historically has been on the North Dakota side, but 25% of the population, as you know, has been on the Minnesota side. So people deciding to maybe work for a primary sector company in Cass County decide they want to live in Clay County for the reasons that they chose to live in Clay County. And that's what's great about a regional economy like this. It offers opportunities for businesses and people to choose where they want to do their business, live, purchase their goods and services. One other thing I'll note on workforce that we're very happy with, and this was recently announced by Concordia, is we work closely with Professor Mark Jensen on an NSF, National Science Foundation grant application. Now this is all due to him, not us. We provided some data and support in his application to NSF and just found out a couple weeks ago that they were awarded $2.5 million of funding to support individuals who may need some extra resources to get training in the sciences to work at the bioscience industries here in our region. And I will tell all of you that when I came in 2018, the bioscience sector, by and large, was Aldevron and maybe one or two others. The size of this sector and the growth potential and the activity that I've seen in the 5 years has been unbelievable. There are nearly 20 companies now, with more locating here, more being stood up. And it's efforts like what Professor Jensen's doing at Concordia, getting that NSF funding, will train more individuals who can then work here in our region for some of these growing companies. So it's truly an ecosystem, right, of how everybody's working together to support industries like the biosciences, industries like ag tech, industries like companies like ByteSpeed, who are doing fantastic work and supporting initiatives. In fact, they're supporting our workforce recruitment initiative with headsets, virtual reality headsets, that we're using to showcase to individuals why they should locate here in the marketplace. So this is just a highlight again of the work that we're doing. And then lastly, with this PowerPoint, I just want to very quickly highlight a few of the things that I shared with Mr. Larson and Commissioner Ebinger, and obviously you guys can speak to this. You sat in on the conversation, but what we wanted to do as we were thinking about the new governance of the EDC is how can we make sure that there's proportional resources and proportional representation. And what I'm happy to say is as we started looking at the data, we realized that in many respects we're already there. So a lot of times the conversation can be, oh, this organization should be putting more resources in or have more say, or less, whatever the case may be. And what we're finding is where we've been is really kind of how the economy works in terms of the investments that you're making and businesses are making, and your representation as decision makers within the EDC board and executive committee. So what we did was we looked at these key metrics. This is now public document, so you can have access to it and look at it in more detail and follow up with any questions. But we were trying to find, how is the population, property and sales tax, labor force, what does that look like? And then where is it projected to go based on data from MetroCog and others? And then how have we as an organization been operating, serving our primary sector companies? And then where is our funding coming from, and how could it look both governance and funding wise going forward? So I can stop at any of these if you want to ask any questions, but I'm going to kind of fly through them because you'll see a theme here. So when we look at population, we're looking at about 75-25, between the North Dakota and Minnesota side. That's been pretty consistent for quite some time, and the projections seem to bear that out as well. When we look at property tax received, obviously the tax systems are different, so that equation isn't quite the same. It's about a 60-40 split. When we look at sales, it's more heavy on the Cass County side than the Clay County, but it ends up being about an 85-15. And put that number in the back of your head, that 85-15, that seems to be a common number. When you combine the two, you're looking at about 65-35. Again, we're just doing comparisons between the two counties, okay, within our service territory. When we look at labor force, it's about 75-25. When we look at projected job growth, it's about 85-15%. Again, these are not our numbers; these are actual data, and then projections from MetroCog and other sources. When we kind of take a look at that population and employment, again, you can see it's either 85-15 or 75-25. And then when we look at job openings, now this is a little old, but we just, like I said, looked at job openings through Indeed last week, and there were 8,500, and it breaks out to about 90-10 between Cass and Clay counties. Our projects, again, it just happens to be that 10% of our clients are on the Clay County side, 90% on the Cass County. That's historically been the case. We've also, and that number bears out here with what we have in our database. We also look at our investors that are primary sector. Again, a majority of those are in Cass County, and that, again, makes sense given kind of the numbers across both sides of our region. We did do an economic impact analysis at the request of Cass County, and we did this, and I won't go into too much detail, but it really comes down to we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars of economic impact because we have companies with open positions that they can't fill, right? If they filled those positions at a rate higher than what we're currently filling, what kind of investment would we want to make, and how long would it take us to get a return on that investment? And Cass County asked that based on an investment of several $100,000. How long would it take us to get those dollars back if we attracted 300 new people filling positions more than what we currently do on an annual basis? And that's what this analysis tells. At the end of the day, what really it's saying is we are not investing in the opportunity that we have in front of us as a region. And so there's been a lot of discussions at the Cass County leadership level, at the EDC board and executive committee level, about Cass County standing up what's called a Job Development Authority, a piece of North Dakota legislation that allows them to levy a tax that would then be directed to support and help primarily with workforce development. But if you take a look at all those factors, what we see proportionally is about a 85 plus or minus economic impact on the Cass County, and about a 15% economic impact on the Clay County. That seems to be the breakout in general. And what we want to make sure is you as electeds, as representing your constituency and others, put data in front of you for good decision making, more so than maybe a history and a relationship that may not quite align one way or another with what this data is showing. Lastly, this is what I call the proportional or fair considerations. As we look to adjust the makeup of the governance of the EDC, and by the way, the current board is 33 voting members and 5 honorary members, so it's a big board. The consideration is going to up to 17 board members, so essentially cutting in half the size of the EDC board, but doing 2 other things: creating an advisory board that all elected officials and large investors would be invited to take part in, and also creating some working groups that would be very focused on our core mission areas. So we have expertise around the table to talk about development, banking, higher education, whatever that might be. So if the board does go this direction, which it looks like they will, then come 2024, we're likely to have up to 6 public sector officials, and I can't make any promises on this, but I'm pretty certain that there'll be probably 2 from the Minnesota side. So in some ways, overrepresenting the makeup of the economics, which I think is probably good for you, and also the executive committee is likely to still have a representation from the county on it. And then the rest of that will be made up of private, primary sector, and kind of local business leaders. So today, on the right-hand side, the funding that breaks down between the North Dakota and Minnesota side on the public sector, again, is about that 85-15, which just was, for me, it was nice to see that, right? And then going into 2024, Cass County has already made a commitment. They'll finalize their budget in a week and a half to raise their investment from $700,000 to $800,000 a year. And then you have the city of Fargo, West Fargo, and Castleton. If there was going to be a proportional investment made on, we'll just call it the Minnesota side, which is primarily you and Moorhead, that would equate to about $150,000 a year. You're currently investing $110,000 in our work. If for consideration you would consider $125,000 because Moorhead does $25,000, that's kind of proportional to how Cass County does it between their county and the cities. But whatever is going to make sense for you is going to make sense for you. I think the key from my position is that engagement, that commitment both ways on the part of me and my role and the staff and the leadership to continue to work with all of you. I mean, Commissioner Krabenhoff, you just joined the board. David, you've been on it for a while on the executive committee. So you guys can speak to how you've been engaged. And obviously, Commissioner Campbell, you were on the board for several years, at least in my tenure as CEO. So that's a lot of probably info for all of you, but I wanted to give you that high-end perspective, what we're really doing on the ground, and then this economics and how it looks maybe from a proportional standpoint. Take any questions that you have.
Any comments or questions from any? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Joe, as you were talking, I pulled up your doing business here data on the website. And I'm going to segue a little bit from the makeup of the board. While I do think that I really appreciate having work sessions with all of the partners, I think that benefits us greatly. So I do know that we have commissioners on that board that can help you guide through that process. But what I want to talk a little bit about is we're always talking about business retention and thinking critically about the data and the numbers that really jump out to me in terms of the cohort when we're looking at ages, the demographic basically from 20 to 29 age
Okay.
20 to 29. And in that, that seems to be some formative years where you could really capture folks to come to your region, to put down roots. When we have 3 universities, I think that's a great draw too. But those numbers went down in the forecast based on the 20 to 24 dropped 1,100, and then the 25 to 29 dropped 500. And those are a little concerning to me, given the growth that we saw in other areas, but also knowing how, like I said earlier, those are great times to capture folks to really continue a life in a region. So how are we thinking critically about retaining those folks? Is there an age-based discussion that we're having as well?
There's a lot of discussions happening around here, and thanks for pointing that out. I think fundamentally, and I'm going to make a statement that is experienced and a little bit of data, and I may be a little off, but I think the challenge and where those numbers come from have as much to do with what we're seeing is the decline in higher education enrollment in that key age group, right? And we're still seeing those numbers felt at MSUM, at Concordia, at NDSU. I mean, those are the 3 big, and M-State, and they're all down. And they have been each of the last several years. I met with President Downs last week. I have a meeting tomorrow with President Irvin. Obviously been meeting with President Cook for quite some time, and with Brimhall longer than anybody. And so we, for the last 3.5, 4 years, have had a partnership with the Chamber to fund what we call Campus FM. And Campus FM is an initiative that is actually being led by Folkways, serving the region, to connect with college students to assist in retaining them in the region. And I can send you more information on it. You can go to the Instagram site. You can look at what they're doing. But it's pretty incredible work, because what we're doing is we're empowering the students to communicate to their peers about what's going on in the region to help retain them. The fertility rate is one of the highest in the nation here, but the impact to 19 to or 20 to 29-year-olds is 2 decades away.
Yeah.
But it's still a positive sign. The workforce recruitment efforts that we have underway, a lot of what we're targeting are people with 3 to 10 years of experience. So you kind of get into that upper 20 age range. They've been maybe out of high school or out of 2 or 4 year school. And we're really hoping to, number one, just get them to realize that this region exists. And their mindset about it is not, it's 30,000 people and it's always cold and, those things we always hear. So we're putting $1 million of investment into our workforce recruitment that will hit on some of those age groups. We're putting investments in our current student population, but one thing that we're not doing yet, but in conversations with all the higher education presidents, there's a real interest in, I think this will happen, is working together to recruit students, not just individual institutions, but as a group.
Right.
Why can't you come here and choose your education? They already can go to the different institutions for certain classes, right, through the tri-college. So how can we work on that together? And every one of them in conversations over the last several months have said absolutely. And I think this is a great sign for all of us. We've got, and I've worked in university communities most of my career, we've got a great set of higher education leaders. Not that we haven't before, but I think that this group, they get economic development. They get the desire to connect to the community because they know that the student base they're trying to recruit is not just looking at their institution. They're looking at the marketplace, the jobs that are here. So it's probably a long-winded answer to your question, but
I think it's important to just kind of hear the inside baseball and what the conversations are.
yeah, and the other piece to this is new Americans and immigrant strategies. There's tens of thousands of individuals who are in the United States in markets who are new Americans. They're just not here. And putting strategies to communicate with them, if they're in Los Angeles, if they're in Atlanta, and these other big metros that they've already taken the hardest step to get into the country, into a location and into a job. And what we want to do is inform them that if you want to come to a market, and this is something that surprises most people, there are 9 multi-billion-dollar companies headquartered here in 7 different industry sectors. And the cross-cutting occupations across those sectors. So if you want to choose to come here and that job doesn't work at that one business, there are other businesses in that industry, but across to other industries. People don't know this. And when they learn about it, it's positively surprising to them. We just can't assume as leaders that everybody understands what's happening here. And the last thing I'll just say on kind of the recruitment strategies is we just started this national recruitment campaign last week. We literally just kicked it off. And as we start rolling out the communications, we'll be sharing that with all of you, hoping that you'll get it into your network,
Gotcha.
right?
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, excuse me.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, Joe, is there 8,000 jobs potential? Is there an area that's really showing itself of the greatest need, or of what part of the spectrum is it? People with, you talked 3 to 10 years experience, that type thing, but in what areas? Manufacturing or
The biggest is healthcare.
healthcare?
I mean, institutions like Sanford, I don't know what their total open positions are today, but it's over 1,000.
Okay.
One organization.
And then I want to ask, just because of some of my background, but I just, where does housing fit in this? Are we doing okay? Are we keeping up?
No. I mean, housing and childcare are workforce issues.
Yeah.
Right? So, when I say we, I kind of put like our organization and the chamber and a few other what I call business development organizations. For several years, we've been, communicating the need for a regional housing study, and that was just completed because housing's a regional issue, right? So as the counties, as the cities, as the organizations who are engaged in housing start to look at that data, my hope is that, that information will lead to the kind of decisions that will help close the gap that we have in some areas of housing. First of all, defining what workforce housing is. What does that mean, right? And how do we as a community make sure that there's enough of that at the level that's needed to attract people? We have people right now with our companies, our clients, who are not moving here because they can't find a home and they can't find childcare, period. Like, we are literally, and some of these are six-figure jobs with some nice companies in our community. And so addressing the childcare and housing issue, in addition to what I call just the perception of our region, like, let's tell people authentically who we are and all the careers we have and the quality of life. This is an investment opportunity, I think, versus we're just trying to, keep the lights on. That's not the case.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay.
If I may. Yes.
Go ahead.
We talked about the Clay County side.
Yeah,
Did you also make a request to the city of Moorhead?
will be as part of their budget process. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. And if you like what I'm saying, you can come with me and,
All right.
no, but yeah, again, I can't overemphasize that at the end of the day, we really believe strongly the work we're doing, the relationships we have. I've done this for 30 years. It's very positive here. And I think when people in my industry say, well, how do you work across two state lines and different counties and different cities? Quite honestly, it's easy because it allows us just to represent different types of opportunities that businesses and people are looking for. So it's truly been a pleasure, and it really has been working with all of you individually and as a team. And so I just want to thank you for that more than anything.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Appreciate the presentation, Joe. Just a little personal perspective from what I've seen working on the executive board. Our needs on this side of the river are not being ignored, but in the totality of things, we are not going to be able to engage at the same level Cass County does. We don't get the support from our state capital that Cass County does. At times, it's going to seem, and at times the reality may be, that we are underrepresented. But given the nature of our businesses, our business environment here, I think that's always going to be the case unless something happens in St. Paul. I've been really happy with what the chamber has done in the Moorhead days. I think our participation needs to be solidified on that. The Moorhead Day at the Capitol. 2 years ago, we made a strong impression. I wasn't involved in last year's, I don't think we were, but there was a strong impression of this region, and that needs to be continued. Joe has reached out to DEED. We saw a great meeting with the former chairman of DEED that was here. He was visibly shocked that this is a metropolitan area of 250,000. This is an informed individual leading a part of our state government. And again, came out here and was totally surprised that this wasn't 30,000 people sitting at the end of the road. So our work is out there for us. I think it's easy to focus on perceived inequities. I think Joe's representation here on the funding and I'll tell you, it ain't going to get any better. The state of North Dakota is loading money into this region. And there's going to be times where we simply are not in a position to where we can play. But continued representation with this organization and with the chamber and with regional groups that are trying to push our region forward. All ships are going to rise. Some of them are going to rise higher than others. But there's some realities we've got to deal with, and a lot of that takes place in St. Paul. And hopefully our representatives there will become more aware of some of the regional needs we have as they gain experience, and we can have an impact there.
Okay, any further comments? All right.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, Rhonda's gonna take over now. First thing is the replacement of financial services supervisor position. And any backfill if necessary.
Yeah, because I have my supervisor, Jamie Stewart, who's been with us for 3 years, has resigned. Her last day will be October 20th. There we go. Her last day will be October 20th. She's moving to Florida, so if you recall, this last year, you actually approved, we had history, we had 2 supervisors in that unit, and then we had a retirement and we reorganized. So we went to 1 supervisor and 3 leads. And this last year, you approved a second supervisor. We did hire that position. You've met Karen. She's come before you before. So she's been in that second supervisor position since January. But with the resignation of Jamie, our needs have not changed. That's a large unit. We need a second supervisor to continue to manage that division. So I'm requesting approval to replace that supervisor position with the approval to backfill should there be any internal interest.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I move approval with backfill.
Second.
a motion is second to approve the request to fill the financial service supervisor with backfill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
now we'll go on to the next purchase of self-service client portal.
Okay.
I want to hear about that one.
All right. I should have had Rory with me today when we're talking about IT solutions, but I'll do my best. So if you recall, Clay County Social Services has worked with Next Chapter Technology for our CaseWorks solution for electronic document managing. We have this EDMS solution in our financial services, our social services. We have an accounting edition, we have a MNsure edition, and we have a child support edition. So it's across our agency. They are launching what's called a client self-service portal. And right now, it's being piloted by Stearns County, but we've participated in a review of it. There's a number of counties, there's about 21 counties that would like to jump on their fall launch of this product. I have sent the information to Rory. He has looked at it as well and viewed the module, well, maybe it's not a portal, and he doesn't have any concerns about it. The biggest piece to this is what I'm most excited about is how it will evolve over time. What the portal will offer right now is individuals that we serve, the case manager can send an invite to them to create a portal. They would create, via their email and a password, and we can exchange documents. We could send them through this portal a note that says, can you please submit 3 months of your pay stubs? Or could you please review this document? Or can you sign this? And they can then do it in their portal, return it back to us. It has an automatic ability to then filter down into the appropriate doc boxes for the specific case. It's really kind of where we're going. If you think about maybe your medical, my charts kind of thing, it has that similar feature. Some future development for this, which is really exciting, is the ability to push notifications to our clients, like, hey, this document needs to be returned by Friday, or you're due for your household report form next month. So it can push some reminders. It's going to have some opportunities for appointment scheduling. So it's really exciting. I think I like to be a part of the first counties that are going to jump on board with the launch because we can be at the table kind of driving some of the developments as it goes. So I would like to get in on the fall launch. The cost for this is, there's a one-time cost. They have it broken down by population of your county. So where we fall in our population, our one-time cost will be $45,000, and then there's an annual maintenance to that. How I would propose to pay for the one-time licensing costs, we can claim some financial participation on the cost, so that would allow us to use $9,675. We are proposing that we use, if you recall, our county got $461,000 to help us with the healthcare unwinding. And so far, you've approved 2 financial workers to be paid for out of that money. So I'm proposing that the portion we can claim to those funds we do, and that would just be the additional $9,675. And then the remaining portion of the one-time cost, that $25,650. So I've gone through the 2023 budget, and if you recall, we this year got out of the Minnesota merit system. We didn't know that we were going to be able to get out in 2023. We were initially thinking it wouldn't be till January 2024. So those funds were budgeted in 2023 and they are in the budget. So I'm simply proposing if we use those funds, it was about 38,000 that was in the 2023 budget for the merit system that will go unused. So I'm proposing that if you would approve, I would use those funds to pay for this, to the launch of this portal. So that would take care of the one-time cost for 2023. And then going forward into 2024, there will be an annual support, and you'll see the revenues that we could claim to support that with the $8,977 would need to be a budget item going forward. I've gone through the 2024 budget as I've submitted because I know we're kind of up against some timeframes. One of the things I shared with you when I did my budget presentation is there were a couple things in the budget that we were hoping our adult mental health initiative could fund with some funds that they got. They did include, if you recall, I put in the budget an additional $12,000 for a place for hope for that increase in their rent. That did get included in the adult mental health initiative request. So I would be able to move that out of the 2024 budget and use those to help pay for this for 2024. So I wouldn't be requesting any additional funds for 2024. But of course, maintenance agreements are ongoing, so it would play into going forward. So that would be my proposal.
Okay. Dave?
You know, Rhonda, looking at this, and a lot of times as we get technology on board, it has long-term impact on staffing. Are there any benefits? Do you see this as something that would address issues that would otherwise need to be addressed by additional staff as we grow?
Yeah, I think absolutely. This portal goes across our system, so it's not just for like financial, it's across our systems. So as we implement it and work with the citizens we serve and their interest in using this portal, it'll definitely impact right away our office support specialists, because right now that stuff comes in via email or via paper. They have to scan it, they scan it into doc boxes, so I think we will certainly see some efficiencies in that for sure. I think we will see some efficiencies or reduced costs in mailing, because if we can, send documents via this way versus kind of snail mail and postage, I think we will definitely see some efficiencies in our work across the board.
Who verifies this information? I mean, if you say you need some pay stubs for the last 3 months, you mentioned whatever, who verifies that they send in all their pay stubs? Or
like in that scenario, that typically we'd be asking for pay stubs in our financial services division. And so those eligibility workers that are assigned to the specific cases monitor that. They go through what they need. They look for verifications. They assure that whatever documentation is needed for that particular program is submitted appropriately, and, yep. So our staff.
I mean, they would know whether they've had more employment than what they reported.
Yeah, we do have systems that cross-verify some of the things that our applicants report. And sometimes we can catch discrepancies in that way, and that gives us an opportunity to talk with our applicants about discrepancies. But, so there are some state systems that do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rhonda, there's been a lot of past technology advances that I think your department more than any is really assisted by implementing and improving on it. And that goes, I think, to most of those have been more internal than external. I think what we're talking about here, some of the things is the communications externally coming back to us. And my question goes to the clientele that we serve, and you've talked about them, but what kind of a percentage would have access don't get me wrong, but the ability to even do this? I'm not a real tech savvy person myself. And so you get a lot of people sitting home, and there might be the Wi-Fi issues in certain areas and the ability to do some of these things. What kind of what are we seeing there? Are we thinking that's going to?
Yeah, there's definitely, so right now, there's the ability, like in some of our programs, to complete applications online, for example, through Min Benefits and those kind of programs. So you're absolutely right. This will not be a fit for everybody. We certainly have some programs where we know a good share of the population may not use this online portal. Often, for example, maybe in some of our elderly programs, what happens is we have families or guardians that kind of help them maneuver through that system, or depending on if they are the folks submitting the forms, so, but there's still going to be the option for snail mail. We certainly can still email things in. This will just be that another option. And as the years have gone on, we're seeing more and more folks, we're seeing our clients texting a lot, which, really, we didn't do much, particularly in our social service area in years past. But, as the years go on, we're seeing this is what our folks want, and I think it can be very efficient. But you're right, there's going to be some programs where it's not going to work as well.
Have you incorporated? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the citizens really would agree to this. Yep, I want to communicate with you via this portal. I want to set it up. It's really voluntary on their part.
And if I can just one last. So have you considered some options for educational pieces for the public to learn how to operate this?
Yeah, we definitely will need to do some strong outreach so that our applicants know that this is an option. I haven't gotten that far into it. I think with next chapter and the communities that the counties are going to launch together, we'll probably work through what kind of communication tools we can put out there for folks. Yep.
Thank you.
Good, Dave.
Just kind of jump in on where we started on this meeting. One of the things that amazed me about the library system and the employees we've got is the assistance they lend in dealing with situations just like this. And I don't want to be overwhelmed with it, but a lot of the state programs now are very much computer-based, and I've watched people come in there not knowing what to do and get assistance, and they actually pick it up and they figure it out. And I think we're seeing the growth in that right now. People that were afraid to turn a computer on 5 years ago are now able to communicate with this. So I think this is forward-looking. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, but we can get on board now, or we can wait until it's critical that we have something like this.
Yeah, thank you.
Just curious about the timing of this, so with, and looking statewide. So it looks like, according to this, 21 counties are moving toward this. Is this, are there other portal-type companies out there that are competing with this group, or does this one be the one kind of endorsed by the state that, you know, how do you,
Yeah.
is this portal use in this way in the early development? Maybe is what I'm asking, because in other segments of business and whatnot, you know, I firmly believe in this system, or these type systems, and they are efficient, and as you've already stated, as time goes on, I mean, we just evolve into this anyway.
Right, when we implemented CaseWorks with Next Chapter Technology, this was back in 2011, there were 3 companies that were really working with counties on electronic document management systems. And not just to store documents, but it had a whole workflow product to it. And there were 3 of them. Really, there's still kind of 3 of them that are working with the majority of counties across the state, with Next Chapter being one of them. There is these other competitive companies that really are fairly similar. They've got some of the same features. I don't know about the client self-portal. I have just heard anecdotally that this is a conversation across the state for the self-service portals for human services. Yeah, it's a new product with CaseWorks, for sure. It's just being piloted with Stearns. But it's, as I understand it, it's such a simple platform. It's cloud-based. Our clients, all they need is access to the internet. Their, whatever typical browser they use would work with this. It carries all of the confidentiality features that I had Rory kind of look through. So that's all I can say.
And I'm not in no way challenging
Yeah.
your background
Yeah.
of making this decision. It was more, you know, we got a third of the state having interest in it, you know, that, pretty
Yeah.
large. And it was more curious about other systems, so.
Yeah, and they
I
do-
trust what you're doing. So.
Yeah, Next Chapter does work pretty closely with the state on all of the interfaces that are needed.
Right.
So, yep.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rhonda, I'm really excited about this because I look at what you're able to accomplish if this is approved, and I'm thinking staff time saved in terms of waiting for appointments or no-shows. I know we've had similar discussions at, say, Lakeland about how to make it more user-friendly for employees and residents, but as someone who lives out of town and who has had to cancel appointments because the roads have been crummy, I'm thinking this could really help save staff time, but also residents the time needing to take off work and come to the office during business hours. This allows folks the opportunity to upload the information whenever it's convenient to them. I'm hopeful that will help the process as well. I'm assured that there's safeguards in there that will cross-reference information. You know, as we talk about internet is a luxury, not everyone has it, and Commissioner Ebinger talked a little bit about how the library systems offer that. Wi-Fi here, I believe you can come here and there's free Wi-Fi while you're waiting if you need to update it. But have we talked about having a portal per se set up for kind of like the law library does, that folks could come in and do their research or upload whatever there? Wondering if that would be helpful for what we're trying to
Yeah,
accomplish.
I think that as this evolves, I absolutely see that being something we'd want to look at, even perhaps in our lobby, where if someone is coming in, they could log right into their portal. And as this kind of expands and develops, they'll be able to access a bit more information, check appointments, check that, yep, I sent that form in. So that is definitely on the radar, where how that might work, having a station somewhere in our building or multiple buildings. Yep.
Yeah, and agreed. I think that this is maybe Some of us are challenged. I'm not going to look across at Commissioner Campbell in terms of submitting things virtually. He said it himself. But I think it's important to know that not everybody does feel comfortable with uploading that stuff online, and some people don't feel like it's safe to send their data in that method. And I think what you're saying is we're not going to eliminate the in-person option, which I appreciate, because we can't solve all issues with one simple fix. So taking into account the challenges that we all face is important, so thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase self-service client portal and enter into the licensing agreement with Next Chapter Technology.
I'll second.
You got a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Great, thank
it
you.
works out.
Thank you.
Anybody need a break, or we good? Okay, we'll take a short break. We'll get going again. Next thing on the agenda is to request approval for the health insurance deductible increase. Darren?
Yes, thank you. Anna usually gives this presentation, but she is feeling under the weather today, so I'm going to try to muddle through it and do the best I can. So the first topic is the embedded family deductible with fourth quarter carryover. It's what is now our 3750 plan. And through the IRS regulations for 2024, that plan, the 3750 deductible, will be increased to $4,000. We did have an insurance committee meeting several weeks ago, and we did vote on this, and it did pass to increase the deductible so that we could keep the fourth quarter carryover and the HSA as part of that plan. So that would be the first thing that we're requesting.
So do the premiums change in that too then, or?
No, just the deductible. Well, the premiums will change based on the increase in insurance for next year, but the deductible is the only thing that's.
Is that 8%?
increased. Pardon me?
8%?
Yes.
Oh, 8 next year? That was 9, okay.
And I'll get to that on my next.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the insurance company recommendations to index the 3750, 7500 to 4000 individual, 8000 family.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to increase the deductible from 3750 to 4,000. Any further discussion?
Really just a clarification that this is January 1st of '24.
Correct.
Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Move on to the request to approve the health insurance renewal for 2024.
Okay, so as you know, or can recall, several years ago, we switched over from Lakes Country Co-op to Blue Cross Blue Shield. And with that, we got a 4-year rate cap, which the first year was, we had a negative 5%. The second year is 7%, and then that was this year. And then next year will be 8%, and then in 2025 will be 9%. This turned out to be a pretty good move because once we had our insurance committee meeting, what we would have had we not had that rate cap was a 26% increase. So it's good to have that cap, and what we're requesting today is to renew that health insurance for 2024 with the 8% rate cap.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So you said without that, we would have had a 26%. Is that over the span? Because based on the 4 years, that's a 19%?
No, that would be for next year. That
So
would-
26 in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Thank you.
They basically use, to determine that, they basically use data from 2 years and average that out to determine, and that would be average 26.
Yes. They look back 2 years on the claims, And then there's a calculation that they do that the older claims have a certain percentage that they account for, and then the newer claims have a higher percentage. So as we go forward, those claims, those high claims that maybe we were in the first period, they may drop off. People may retire, people get better. So it's a constant moving target each year to figure out what this is based on. But our claims, based on our claims, we could have had a 26% increase for 2024. But because of the rate cap, we'll have a 8%.
So who eats up that other 17% or whatever it is? The company, Blue Cross, or?
Blue Cross, Blue Shield, probably. I don't know.
I mean, are we looking at a big increase next year, or do we?
Well,
have a
next year would be,
contract?
next year would be our 9%, so that would be the fourth year of our rate cap.
Okay,
What we're really looking at is 2026, because then we're out of our rate cap. Everything is based on claims and how many claims that we have. And there's a lot of discussion that we've been having in the last couple of years, actually, on for the insurance committee on whether we go to become a self-insured county. And that's a whole another discussion in itself, with a lot of smart guys looking at numbers and claims and everything else. So, but that won't really probably take effect until 2026. So we'll probably have to start looking at that, end of 2024 for 2026.
One of the things that seems very likely is come 2026, we'll either see something significant in terms of an increase, or we're going to be doing the, hopefully to buy that increase down would be to self-insure. And that's part of what we're doing now by recommending that we start putting away similar to what we do for internal service, and that's to start setting aside some funds so that we don't have that sticker shock of $1.5 million that we're going to need to have all up front at one time. And I think even in the budget for 2023, we had $200,000 that we've set aside, and I think, Lori, we have $250,000 in 2024. And I think based on the early modeling numbers, what we would need to have just to be able to cover the first quarter claims, for example, in 2026, if we were to self-insure, would be about $1.1 million, between $1.1 and $1.5 million. So that's, so when you self-insure, it takes you all year to get your premiums in, but those first quarter claims can be costly. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at now and planning in the future. But this is we're fortunate that we did this 4-year deal right now.
Right.
well, if I get out of here, I'll help you out quite a bit here, so. My insurance claims out there. Okay. All right, any,
So
Mr. Chair, I
we
would
just need-
move the Insurance Committee recommendations for the renewal of the cafeteria plan for 2024.
Second.
we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I take it the yearly compensation that employees get is going to go up too then?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
That's what your question was, it's 50% of the average of those plans.
Right. I think Anna figured it out, and I will take her numbers gospel, is a $292,000 increase for the county portion of that.
Okay, then let's just stick with Darren here. Vision insurance renewal?
This is an easy one, the vision insurance renewal. We went out for an RFP, same vision with Agassiz, and they had no increase to their premiums. So that vision will stay the same for next year.
I move to approve the 24-25 vision insurance renewal.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the vision insurance premiums. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Request for dental insurance premium increase.
Okay, this is a little bit more complicated than the vision. As you know, we are self-insured for dental, so we have a little bit of experience being self-insured for dental. And during the last insurance committee meeting, it was brought to our attention that our claims are running a little bit below what our premium or our money that we're putting into that fund. In the last 12 months, our claims have been $365,000. In the prior 12 months, it was $353,000. Our current rate for the dental insurance is $41 for a single plan and $105.50 for a family plan. Right now, we have 384 single plans and 147 family plans. So being self-insured, we have to kind of monitor ourselves, what the claims are coming in, and then making sure that we're covering those claims. And the expected claims in 2024 is about $420,000, and that would be for claims and admin costs. And so what the insurance committee was tasked or asked to do would be to vote on increasing the premiums for the dental plan for the year of 2024. And to keep up with the claims data that is projected for 2024, the dental premiums would go up to $45 single from $41, and $116 for family, up from $105.50. And what this would do would cover the claims that we would have in 2024. This is a 9.7% increase. The good thing about this is that back in 2020, when we had Blue Cross Blue Shield dental, we were paying $55 for a single plan and $143 for a family plan. And then we switched over to Delta Dental a couple years ago and got a very large decrease in the premium costs. So being at $45 single and $116 for family next year, we're still $10 a month lower than what we were in 2020. So the insurance committee voted on this and decided that the increase was justified for next year.
How many participants did you say we had? How many family and how many?
We have 147 family plans on the dental and 384 single plans.
So I take it that includes all our full-time employees?
Yeah, correct.
But they all have to be under it.
They all have to have at least a single.
They all have to have at least single plan. That's one of the required.
Okay.
Single health,
Do the
single
variable
dental.
employees have any insurance?
They do not. They do not.
Okay. Very good, okay.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the increase for dental.
Second the motion.
Got a motion, a second to increase the dental insurance premiums. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, also just a note to put out to everybody that's listening that are employees here. Open enrollment will run from October 19th to November 3rd this year. We are looking to go that completely online, so we won't have any paper copies or anything. The one thing that I want to stress, and I will be stressing this until that time, is that on November 3rd, that is a drop dead date. After that time, they lock it so that they can do their back half calculations and everything. So November 3rd, when we're doing paper or something like that, some people will come in a day later, or if there's some extenuating circumstances, we'll take them later. But with our online system now, November 3rd is the deadline. So if you don't get it in by November 3rd, then you're going to have the same things that you had from last year. So Anna just wanted me to make sure that I pointed that out, and she's been working diligently with UKG, or not UKG, Wise Benefits and our people to get that up and running for this year's open enrollment.
So we're still able to do it by paper going in?
No,
You have to do it by,
it'll all be online, correct.
scares me.
And the other thing is, Anna will be coming out with a communication plan, probably in the beginning of October, maybe earlier, on how this whole new system works. So everybody will be trained on it prior to open enrollment happening. So,
Very good. Okay,
any other questions?
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Larson will take over here. Approve the replace county assessor due to pending retirement.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Really a bittersweet day today. Last week, I had a conversation with Miss Nancy Gunderson, our county assessor, and she shared that she intends to retire by the end of this year. Now, we're fortunate and pleased that she did provide us a multiple month notice. Her last working day will be December 1st. But certainly a loss for the county, someone with a couple different stays with us here, over 40 years of experience in the assessor department. So she's always carried herself in a professional fashion, tremendous expertise, and will be greatly missed. And so with that, the request would be to get ahead. We hope to be able to find a replacement which will allow a little bit of an overlap with Nancy prior to that retirement. I yield for any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this was certainly, as you said, bittersweet to read that when you updated the commission last week on this. Nancy has just been a wonderful person to work for, particularly as a new commissioner, as I was trying to figure out all the nuances to assessment and values and tax components. I'm hopeful that as we get someone in there, like you said, could shadow her for a little while, certainly could get to the township meeting and small cities meeting that we'll be having later on. Because as said, Nancy really works with the townships and cities quite closely. And I think it was maybe last week during her department update, someone said it, even though it's a small budget, a couple nights a year, her her department has a lot of folks providing input. So, it's hard to see long-term employees go, particularly department heads, because we work a lot with them, but wish Nancy nothing but the best in her future endeavors.
Dave?
Yeah, I just, to sum up what Commissioner Mojo just made an observation of, we had people come in here to contest their valuation of their property, and to a person, every one of them started off with, hey, we really appreciate the staff in the assessor's office, and they really helped us, and we, to establish that kind of credibility with a group that's contesting your final results, just shows the quality of that department and the ability she's shown in leading it. So, again, I hope we can meet or maintain the standard that she's established. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to request approval to replace county assessor due to pending retirement.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the request. Any further discussion? I would just like to comment too, I think she's done a tremendous job in getting the county up to date on all our our property taxes and stuff like that, so she's done a great job. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, next thing we got is a request approval allocating public safety funds provided by the 2023 legislature. And I think we've got around 920,000 or 50,000, I don't know what it is.
Yes.
Somewhere in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, the 2023 legislature provided cities and counties roughly $300 million in one-time funding for public safety through the tax bill. Clay County received $942,019, and that's going to be payable this year on December 26th. Currently, there's no time frame in which the county has to spend these dollars. Chapter 64, Article 4, Section 27 provided some of the different ideas. It's a broad use of funds. They do provide some different examples, whether community violence prevention, community engagement, mental health crisis response, victim services, training programs, paying other personnel for equipment. It also provides us what we can't use it for, would be employer contributions, public employee and police and fire funds, costs associated with any wrongdoing or misconduct. Also, no tactical vehicles, tear gas, ammunitions, or cost of construction. This board has had multiple conversations on this public safety funding and felt that it was a large enough sum and important enough to establish a committee, which was done on July 25th. Commissioner Eberger, Commissioner Campbell are the liaisons for that committee. We reached out to our department heads that would be potentially impacted or allowed to utilize these funds, and we had presentations from both the county attorney, probation department, and the sheriff's department. The committee brought forward and established and looked at the different requests and established a recommendation that we brought to a work session last Tuesday afternoon, and basically some recommendations came forward from that. One of the main requests, in addition to the public safety funding and spending in the best possible way, was also a recommendation from this board to look at if there are any of those funds that could be utilized as part of the new requests that have come forward with the 2024 budget. And so we received multiple requests. We're vetting through a series of those yet, but this morning do have a recommendation to be brought forward for your consideration. 3 of those requests are from the Sheriff's Department, and one from Corrections, and one from the County Attorney's Office. And so within the 2024 budget, there's a request from Sheriff Empton for 2 additional deputies, and that would come with a cost of $214,000 and $214,086. With that, we would also need a fit up of two separate vehicles, and the vehicles. If you recall earlier this summer, Sheriff Empton was approached by Enterprise, and we had the opportunity to secure three vehicles that we were going to be ordering in 2024. And so subsequently, we do have those vehicles already in our possession. And then the additional cost of that would be looking to fit those up with the additional equipment that's needed, whether it's the computers, push bars, the stop sticks, tow straps, et cetera there. That'd be another $140,000. Within Sheriff Empton's budget, there's also a Polaris Ranger UTV requested. That's a $60,000 piece. Those are the 3 requests from the Sheriff's Department. And when it comes to the Corrections, which technically is still under the Sheriff's Department, there is a request for body-worn cameras, totaling $93,465. I think that roughly a little over 3 years ago, this board approved our sheriff's deputies, Sheriff's Department, to have them in their vehicles. I think it's become a standard to which is very important from a public safety standpoint, and also for our officers. Excuse me. And recently, as we've talked about, our correctional facility is really looked to as a standard across the state of Minnesota. We did have MCAT come through our facility recently just to evaluate it, and one of the suggestions that they provided was to have our officers wear body cameras throughout their shift. And so that is that request. Just for the board's perspective, again, as we talked about earlier in social service budget, $93,567 or $65 would be it for the purchase in the first year of essentially the cloud services. There would be an ongoing charge of $37,700 and I believe $73 in future budgets to maintain that cloud. And the last item that we have before you is the restorative justice position. Mr. Melton presented that request as part of his 2020 for budget requests. That position is already currently in place. This board has utilized ARPA money for that position. I think he made the cause of many of the challenges that came about of COVID, that it's been utilized, it's been a strength of in this last year to have that. And so that is part of his request, which would be brought forward. For the board's perspective, that's a total of $594,505, which would leave a remaining balance of $347,514. From an impact to the budget standpoint, that would be a $501,000, $501.40 reduction in the proposed levy at this point, and we'll have some additional discussion with that in the next agenda item. And so, as mentioned, there are some additional things that the committee is still continuing to look at, and most likely will be coming back at a future date, but for today's purposes, these are the requests that we're looking to have brought forward. That I'd yield for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An item of note in the packet on the back, public safety funding piece, the cameras for corrections are not included in that piece, so they are in the memo. Just want to talk a little bit about, thanks for the recommendation from the committee. I know working with departments and having that at a committee level, you really proposed a great use of these funds. I had the opportunity to, I was asked by Representative Joy what the county was thinking about in terms of utilizing for the funds, and in briefing him about what we've talked about, it really encompasses the spirit in which the legislators allocated these funds to allow local departments to see fit as they needed. I really am excited about the potential or the ability to fund the restorative justice position. I know that we've heard over and over again how important that piece is. I would maybe say now with the limbo with our school resource officers because of what the legislature did with that, that only bolsters the importance of the restorative justice position in our counties. They really are helpful in walking through and working with schools and families and young people as well. And also as someone who lives in rural Clay County, as I said earlier, making sure we add additional deputies to increase or decrease the time for those calls to rural Clay County. And also when our municipalities ask for backup, I think it is incredibly wise to use these funds for that. So I completely support all of the requests in this package.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the money that we're talking about here, I think it's a good source of using one-time money that can help us, and it also some of them it certainly helps our 2024 budget for 1 year, but ultimately some of that will still be a factor for the 2025 budget. If I can, Ms. Chair, I'd ask to have the addition regarding the SRO topic, and Commissioner Mojo brought it up, and I think I'm going to dive right into that piece of it right now. And obviously, with what the state legislature did, it certainly had an impact on and the concerns with our law enforcement on the ability to have SRO officers in there from liability standpoints and so on and so forth. And part of the unintended consequences that are probably come with that, so as we all know, as the SRO officers are no longer going to, that contract is, I don't know if it's been, it hasn't been necessarily terminated, but it's been on hold, so to speak. And the fact of the matter is within our budget process, we still do, we anticipate that cost share. For example, with DGF, it's $69,000 a year, and with Ulen, it's $27,000. So that's $96,000. If it were for an entire year, that's a loss of revenue in the Sheriff's Department of $96,000. We're certainly not going to suggest that, well, we need to eliminate those positions, because we know we can't do that and we don't want to do that. but it's an unintended consequence that we still have to deal with from a budget standpoint. Because by doing that, we're not going to get that revenue. And I just wanted this board to be aware of that, and, and as we move forward, we've got these public safety dollars, and it might be something else to consider to help offset that lost revenue. I'm not suggesting that decision be made today, but I think it's important that we understand another one of the unintended, not only is it a real safety issue within our school systems, but you're going to do the best you can by patrolling on a regular basis, but in addition to the concerns of safety, then it also becomes an unintended consequence of the budget.
Go ahead.
See, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just going to address some of those budget issues and concerns. So how we bill out to our schools is we bill out for the school year. So, for example, we billed out for the 2022-2023 school year, February of 23. So for our miscellaneous refunds, we have received those refunds for the 2023 budget cycle. The concern would come now for the 2024 budget cycle,
right,
where we bill out for 2023-2024 school year in February of 24. We would not receive those funds. Hopeful that sometime in 2024, the legislature will address this issue, will resolve the issue, and maybe we can get into the schools towards the end of the school year and potentially recover some of those costs. If not, I do have some plans moving forward to where I believe we would be able to recoup some of those costs, or at least cover some of the costs that are currently within the 2024 budget. For example, I am hopeful that I will be able to hire a third full-time person for our courthouse, our court security spot. That spot's been open for some time now. I do have one application for that. It's something that I'll have to talk and discuss a little bit more at PIC coming up, but I'm hopeful we'll be able to get that position filled. If we do get that position filled, that means we will utilize our part-timers a little bit less in the courthouse, and we'd be able to recover some of those costs with losing that contract with some of the part-time salaries. We still have to have our part-timers. We still have a need for them. I'm not going to say we're going to recover 100% of the costs, but we are going to recover some of the costs if we're able to get that courthouse position filled.
Yes.
Sheriff, you've made a difficult decision, but an obvious one. I think it's obvious there's a bipartisan support to address this, not only in the state, but in our own district, with Senator Kupek recognizing that the law is vague and needs to be clarified. Senator Joy has put a lot, or Representative Joy has put a lot of energy into addressing this, and we're grateful to both of them. Even the Attorney General declined to address two of the issues at question, saying the legislature needs to clear it up. And frankly, when you direct county or city personnel, deputies or officers around the state to be at variance with the training that they have set up and with the laws that they have to control use of force in state law for law enforcement officers, and you present something that goes against their training and against their training, what their responsibilities are in use of force, and against the policies of their departments, we have a liability issue that we can't afford by putting them then under a completely different set of rules that they have seconds, if that, to make a judgment on how they're going to react. So just from a liability position, not just for the county, not just for the schools, but for these individual officers, I understand your inability to continue the school resource project as it is right now. And it is something we may have to anticipate augmenting the budget to address. But there's been a lot of misinformation put out. I think the Sheriff's Association and Chiefs Association and the Peace Officers Association all indicate they have no concerns with the parts of the legislation that require they avoid certain holds. And that's been very dramatically put out there that this is what the issue is. It isn't. And the position you've taken is a responsible one, both for the liability issues we've got and for protecting your personnel from possible litigation or criminal charges. And those are the issues we're dealing with here. So as we look at how we're going to spend the money here for public safety, that may be part of what we have to keep in mind. Hopefully, the legislature will step up in short order once they come into session, since the governor doesn't appear to plan on calling a special session, and we'll be able to address the deficiencies and address it in a realistic manner, not in some of the hyperbole that's gotten out there.
Sheriff, I certainly support your decision too, that of what, I think you did what you had to do under the circumstances. You know, and I only bring this up for the fact of the matter is if this wasn't resolved in an entire year process, the loss in revenue would be $96,000.
It'd be actually, we found that the true numbers, because I was just going off the top of my head, it's 108,000.
Okay, all right, well, it's even worse.
Even worse.
So, but anyway, you know, as we talk about these, this public safety money and things moving forward, and certainly these numbers that were present at the recommendation of our committee, what we're representing today, it's a significant investment, additional investment into the sheriff's department for things that they've proven and shown that they need. And at the same point in time, for the year 2024, all of our taxpayers will also benefit from the fact that we would be using these funds as opposed to levy dollars to pay for it. So it's a win for his department, it's a win for the people within Clay County. And so having said that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we authorize those dollars to come from public safety and remove them from the proposed levy.
Second.
You got a motion, a second to move funding from the budget to the funding. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Ebinger really has lived experience, as you know, just because of his career. But I think one part of it that he explained was there's bipartisan support to address this. And I want to go one step further. This is nonpartisan. This board is nonpartisan. Our school boards are nonpartisan. Our sheriff and attorney's office are nonpartisan. And we are doing our best to react to the circumstances in which we're experiencing in our communities. We are part of dialogues with school districts and with teachers and with administration and superintendents about how we best can work together to address the needs in which we're seeing. This board helps to allocate mental health funding, to have mental health supports in all of our schools. This board works to make sure our sheriff's office has the tools that they need to help address issues that we see in children. We all want to believe that our kids are amazing star students, but unfortunately, some of the circumstances that these children live with require additional supports. And what the school resource officer is a resource to those schools. I graduated from a school in which Clay County and this Moorhead Police Department had a resource officer in their school. And I will guarantee you that that resource officer didn't care about the class or creed or color of any of the students in which they dealt with. Kids that had bad experiences with these school resource officers later on down the road would say that that resource officer was one of the people that held them accountable. If a child, as an adult, saw that school resource officer on the street, I guarantee you they would double check what they were about to do because they knew they were being held accountable by some person. my kids have people in their lives that hold them accountable, as do all of the young people that you guys know. There are some kids that don't have that. And unfortunately, the community needs to help provide some of those resources. And nobody cares what party they're affiliated with. And so for people to blast individuals doing their best in the paper and in the radio and on the news is cowardly. And so, yes, we will do our best to address the needs of the school districts, as we always have, without the ability to have resource officers in the halls of the schools. You're doing your best to address the routes and the presence, to continue that. This is about a clarification that bipartisan, nonpartisan, grandparents, parents, children deserve a clarification. So I'm sorry if this is a soapbox, but this board and the departments that we work with in this budget that we're about to talk about is all about meeting the needs of our community. That's all we're trying to do. So yes, I agree that we'll do our best to find the funds wherever we need to do it to help out, because it has to happen. We can't turn a blind eye anymore.
Well spoken.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, I just want to make sure Commissioner Campbell's motion does include the ability to make because of supply chain issues, to do some of the hiring, or excuse me, some of the purchasing requests now, to have that ready by
Yes.
January, and also to have the sheriff start his hiring list now.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to publicly say thank you for all the words being spoken and in support of what position you've had to make. And I agree with everyone here in our conversations and how we move forward.
And I want to thank the board for your support. It wasn't an easy decision to make. It wasn't a fun email to send to you indicating that we had to suspend the contract. So I do thank you for your support. The schools want us in their hallways. They do. I myself walked the hallways of the DeWorth site last week, just so the schools could see us there and know that I'm there to support them as well. And talk to some teachers and talk to some administrators and talk to some administrative assistants, and they all had the same feelings of, we want you here. So hopefully this can get figured out sooner rather than later, so we can get back into the schools and do the great work that our SROs do in the schools. So thank you again for your support.
Well, thank you for your efforts. Okay, we do have a motion on board. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Move ahead with that then. Okay, now we're going to a budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you are certainly aware, we first came with our first update back in August 8th. At that time, we shared some sales tax information with this commission. Ms. Johnson just updated me actually this morning. We continue to see strong sales tax figures coming in. As we shared, we did have a dip in 2 months, a small decrease for the first time in several years in that. Having said that, we already have received our September payment, which is just a few $1,000s less than what we received last year, but we receive a second payment, which will, based on projections, will be above that amount. So if everything were to continue to stay where we were at, I think we shared that we're looking at about a projection of a 10% increase over last year's sales tax. And so that's a benefit, sales tax collection, excuse me. And so the benefit to that, again, is we've been able to keep any sort of levy dollars out of the 2024 budget to pay for both the correctional facility and law enforcement center. We talked about fund balances as an update and looking at 2022. Our general fund did see a decrease for two reasons. Number one, we budgeted a $1.35 million revenue, fund balance revenue to address, to lower the levy. We also had a one-time accounting adjustment that was fairly significant. So we did see a decrease in our general account, general fund account. We saw an increase in public health and social services, which they provided updates of why those happened through their budget cycle, and the remainders really stayed pretty flat. We also had a summary of where we were from revenues and expenses for 2023, and all of those showed to be in the percentage based on the portion of the year. In looking at the budget, the first presentation came in at 6.44%. That included all new requests both from our, I guess I would say, our internal departments, but then also some additional requests that came both in minor COLA increases and then new requests from our external requests. And so that was where we left it. At the end of that presentation, he said 6.4% would not be acceptable. We did go back and looked at some of our additional expenses and revenues. We were able to cut a few expenses and also some additional revenue from a standpoint from Lori's budget with the higher increase of interest rate. We're able to get some additional dollars on our investments, and so we're able to make some minor adjustments. In addition to our item today, we also were able to look at the public safety funds that you just took action on, and we were able to remove those. And so this morning you do have a handout that you received. That's the summary of the 2024 tax levy by funds. Again, the first document shows what that looked like with a reduction of the $501,040 from the new requests that came from public safety. That got us down to 5.12%. This past week, as I mentioned earlier, we had a work group. We had 3 items on them. One of the items was the 2024 budget. And through our discussions, you still, as a board, did not feel 5.12% was an acceptable amount for our citizens. And so the suggestion was presented to utilize $500,000 of fund balance. Part of that discussion and why we felt comfortable doing that is we did evaluate some of the changes that Commissioner Campbell's brought up in earlier board meetings about looking at our funds from the standpoint of the replacement positions that we have and how long they stay open. The county positions are factored in the budget and save money. And so we were able to, felt comfortable utilizing $500,000 in fund balance, and was a recommendation that was discussed. The second item just takes that and based on the board's actions today, the second summary of the 2024 tax levy takes that, adjusts the new requests minus the $500,000, includes the fund balance, which would, with new construction of 1.2%, brings a proposed net levy increase of 3.89%. If the board were to feel comfortable with this, the request would be is that next week, per our timeline, we have set the 19th to set our preliminary levy and certify that through resolution, which would allow Ms. Johnson to meet the statutory requirements of October 1st. And so with that, I'd yield for any questions.
Any questions for Steve?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Of the total levy of $48,138,351, as it's showing on this document, how much of that are we anticipating will go into a savings account?
We have some accounts that are savings and checking, and we get a very high interest rate on those. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm not, that's not, I know where you're investing money up until it has to be used. I'm referring to how much of this $48 million actually is intended to stay in bank accounts or savings accounts or CDs. The number to me, what should be our internal service fund number. That's what I think it should be. So in other words, what we're asking everybody to pay, these are all dollars we're anticipating are gonna have to be spent,
Correct.
with the exception of internal service money, but some of that is still spent, but it's, yeah.
We typically spend about what we put in for internal service, not always, a little bit of a,
Right. It goes up a little bit just because we have new stuff that we're adding in.
So I think maybe to your point, Commissioner Campbell, of the amount of money that we're asking our taxpayers to pay, essentially the internal service and $250,000 for future insurance. Yeah, there's no rainy day fund that's included in this budget.
It just,
Okay.
and was that the same last year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Except last year was 200,000.
200,000, correct.
Okay. There's no questions, I guess? There's nothing to vote on there, is there?
No, Mr. Chair, just as long as you're good we'll bring forward that resolution then next week.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on that. Okay, we'll go on committee reports. Kevin, you want to start us out today?
Sure, I can, Mr. Chair. I just had 2 meetings last week. Let me just pull up my calendar here. I had on the 7th, we had a Clay County Intergovernmental Committee meeting. We had that was on hiatus for the summer, and so we had our first fall meeting. And the majority of this discussion was on the 2024 intergovernmental retreat that we put on and what those topics would be. There's a significant discussion on childcare and what those needs are, and so we continue to have those discussions and trying to finalize. I think we are still looking at a date of January 26th of 2024 for that retreat. And we did receive updates from everybody. One of the encouraging things from Dilworth, Glidden Felton School District is they have started their own internal childcare for early morning and after-school childcare. It's called Rebel Kids Care, and it's they have over 50 kids in there, and then they have and then I think they talked about their enrollment. They have 133 kindergartners now in that, and so I'm sure all of those at some point in time are probably using a part of that Rebel Kids Care. And so that's really encouraging, and it's I think if you listen to the superintendent, he's really excited about that program. We did receive updates from Moorhead, different things that they're working on, and then the only other meeting that I had was yesterday. We had a solid waste meeting with Corey, and we had Steve Skoog, who's the solid waste manager for Becker County, along with Becker County Commissioner John Hokinson, myself, and Steve Larson. And we were talking about, we continue to talk about transportation issues. There's a lot of the stuff that goes on between our 2 counties that we're deadheading on our transportation, that go back and forth from Becker County to Fargo, or in our case, from Moorhead to Perham and back. So we're trying to figure out how we can, and I give a lot of credit to Corey and Steve on this. They're working on this, and if we can resolve that, I think they talked about the potential on savings, and that could be upwards of about $2,000 to $2,500 a week. So it'd be a significant improvement if we can see that happen. There's a few things that are standing in the way right now, but we're trying to reverse that. We might have to look at our own fleet policy that we've just established and approved. if we're sharing, if there's potential for sharing a fleet deal with Becker County, it might require some modification to that fleet policy, which certainly is something that's doable, so. But that's, those are the, and then they have in Becker County, they do have a system in place where they have a company that they hire for shredding mattresses, and that's a big deal, and so Corey is looking at how we can get trained to do something similar here and be able to recycle some of those products instead of just having them go into our landfill. That concludes my report.
Hey, Dave?
Had a short week last week. Following our meeting last Tuesday on the 12th, we convened as a committee of the whole and discussed the public safety funding that was available that we dealt with today. And that concludes my report.
Okay, Paul?
Going back to last Tuesday, had our Clay County Law Library meeting. Financials are all in good order. Our general update was pretty much about the activities that are going on in the library. Emily has been providing clinics, and just to give an update, she does those six clinics a month for people to come in, learn how to use the law library, and helping them find their way through legal precedents and statutes. And around 50 people have gone through last month. And as was mentioned earlier today, in the Moorhead Public Library or Lake Region presentation, we do have a kiosk there, and then Nathaniel Craig works that, and he also gets a number of people to use our services of the library there. After that, I too was part of the group that all us commissioners were at later that afternoon regarding the budget, public safety, and HRA funding. And then the next morning on the 7th, I was with Commissioner Campbell on the Intergovernmental Committee, and he covered that very well, focusing on child care, and I too was really moved by what Shannon was talking about at DGF regarding the Rebel Kids Care program that they have there. As we moved into the week on Thursday, September 7th, I had my Clay County Local Advisory Council meeting regarding children's mental health care. We had a really good presentation by Prairie St. John's. This is a pure mental health hospital. They've totally redone their program. They've done a big rebuild of that facility. They now have 132 beds for inpatient crisis responses for people that need to be there. Of those 132 beds, 44 are set up for adolescent ages, so it's a big piece of it. They also offer a second level of care, and that's day treatment, so partial treatment for mental health issues, and those are day treatments that go from 2 to 4 weeks. And then, of course, they have their third level of care, which is intensive outpatient treatment, where people will come in half a day, 3 days a week for ongoing and, if you will, aftercare of some other needs as they see them needing to be addressed. Later in that meeting, we had a guest with us, and that was Representative Heather Keeler. She was with us and spoke to, in her opinion, the legislature did really great things with child care and other issues gap in what I was going to say on that, but other children's issues. But they really, she really felt they missed on mental health. And so she's focusing on that quite a bit. And that's the reason she was at the meeting, just to address that. So we talked about with our website and with the LIC, how do we bring together to help get data, if you will, for what the needs are in Clay County and this region, the West Central region. And the idea of it is to perhaps get funding through the legislature for a pilot project that it can help with the communication for users, such as through the 988 system. But it's creating better information so that Clay County can show in their unique position with, North Dakota being next door and work together with some of their facilities. How can we show the need to the state legislature what is here and what are the gaps we're missing and not filling? So if I may, I'm going to jump into an offshoot of that. And that was another meeting I had yesterday, and that was with Commissioner Gross, our Administrator Steve Larson, and people from Rhonda with Social Services, and they and James from Corrections, and who else? We also had a couple representatives from Solutions and also Prairie St. John's and Village. That's what it was. Anyway, she brought with her Representative Liebling, and she is, Representative Liebling is from Rochester, and she's committee chair for Health, Finance, and Policy, and then Heather is vice chair of Children, Families, and Finance and Policy. And their whole issue about having our talk, and Steve, you can expound later, Frank, you were there, about a couple of things. Number one came up, and I've heard it here for the last year that I've been around, is the issue about in corrections, that when people are put into secured, go from unsecured to be secured, they lose their medical assistance, and then that cost drops on the county, and that costs the county about $17 a day, and adds up to be, correct me if I'm wrong, up to $250,000 a year. And as we went through this is federal law through the Social Security Act, and perhaps with the help of our discussions, working maybe through these two representatives, we can look to see if we can have a waiver that the state can ask the feds to do, that maybe we can get away from having these costs. So we'll see where this goes, and that's items that they want to work toward as the 24 session comes into being next year. The other piece was going back to this database that I mentioned earlier, and we'll be having a follow-up with the LIC next month, and I think Representative Keeler will be again at that meeting. So we'll see where those things go. I think they were all good and very productive, and it was good to see the energy in the room working toward these things. Maybe Steve or Frank, you can speak to the potential that they were talking about with a psychiatric care facility. Okay. Also, then going to, got off track here. Yeah, those were the two on Thursday. Then on Friday, I had my part of my Cascade Food Commission. We, along with the Food Partners of the North, got back to going up with our First Fridays presentations over at 701, excuse me. eateries, and a pretty full room, and featured by Heart and Soul. And I just want to do a shout out for them, Heart and Soul. They have a food truck that goes around, and they also do some other work to integrate with, or complement, if you will, with Meals on Wheels. This is a nonprofit that works, provides meals on pay-as-you-can, and about a large number of people that eat from the truck or get food on Saturdays through this group. They have not the ability to pay, so it really serves people in a need for having meals provided. And just to show the heart of what they do, they've been around for 6 years, and this is developed out of that full food truck. This year alone, from May through August, they served over 3,000 meals. It's really quite a thing. And then once again, backing up to the work they do, they provide 500 bagged lunches every Saturday, again, to complement Meals on Wheels, because they don't serve over the weekends. So tremendous work by that organization. I'll end that part with just to announce that tomorrow is at 10:30 at the Fargo Commission chambers will be the next Food Commission meeting, where all the governance appointees from the governances of the local cities, local area cities, and our 2 counties will be there, and there'll be a full presentation on policy and the advocacy that goes on for through the Food Commission. And later that afternoon, Commissioner Mojo and I just met with County Extension, University of Minnesota Extension, I should say in this case, and Randy Nelson, having vacated a position as extension educator and part of agriculture and horticulture, is starting to work on that new description of the replacement, the job description. So there's several pieces to this. Commissioner Mojo may want to elaborate on that. And then last night, I was last night I went to the Buffalo Red Watershed District meeting. It's their monthly meeting. I do want to say our new board member that we appointed, Kurt Stubstead, farmer in South of Haven. Anyway, he was in attendance for his first meeting, and he actually gave some nice input during the meeting. So he's up and running on that new position. I think he'll do a great job. The other part I want to talk about, when we had our tour a month ago, we looked at an area that on the Wolverton Creek that had been restored, and this is a project that had started in 2017. And with that, a water management district was formed where these people would pay for the benefits they're going to get through this project. And through all the money in clean water funds, money coming through One Watershed Road Plan, and just other funding mechanisms, they've shortened the time frame. They've been paying their assessments on this now for approximately 5 years, and they've almost already had enough money in place now to pay for the total bill. And so they amended their assessment policy on this one and reduced it down where they that each year they'll look at what the maintenance costs are. So whatever the levies have been will no longer be in place, and they'll either be zero or just something minimal to make sure the maintenance of this project goes on. And this is the first, we had Comstock, Cooley, and Clay County. There are 3 phases to this throughout Wilkin, so we're working on each piece. And it's just nice to see those projects doing their work, and as well as once they're in, it looks like there's a lot to keep them going. Last, we talked about the levees, the ring dike levees that are being put up as part of the diversion project. And to let you know, the final plans are being submitted from the watershed to the MnDOT for the road races on Highway 75. And those will be sometime in September. MnDOT will go through them. From that, then along with the diversion, whatnot, they will finalize their engineering plans, get out their bids, get out the bids, get those all put together, and it looks like we'll have construction starting on Highway 75 in the year 2025. And being there are 3 different projects, MnDOT may stagger them a little bit, not knowing right now which one will be first, but that's when we can look forward to the ring dike around Wolverton, Christine, and then of course the 2 road races at Georgetown on the levee there, and to get that all finished up. And then there's going to be a low-rise bridge right on the west side of it on Mason Street that will actually be removed because it's been a real challenge for blocking the river up on the channel there, so that on Buffalo, so that bridges can be removed. So that's what I had.
Hey, Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I attended the project tour in collaboration with the Diversion Authority and the Red River Basin Commission. We toured the P3 components and the channel that ASN is working on the north end, and then traveled down to the structures on the south end. There were legislators in attendance, both Senator Kupak and Representative Joy were present from our side, but also North Dakota officials as well with the Basin Commission. So I think there was lots of questions, and as you know, so many of those folks have worked on other big projects from Winnipeg all the way to the south end of the basin. So it was nice to hear their feedback on that. The next day, I attended the Red River Basin Commission ex officio meeting. We had Minnesota representatives from St. Paul and DNR, and Ag Commissioner Tom, our Ag Commissioner, was there as well. Had an update from the National Weather Service on the 2023 spring flooding and the forecast for the outlook. As you know, this is looking to be an El Nino pattern, so it might be warmer winter, but the precipitation is the variable. And then had agency reports and a nice update from the West Central Regional Water District. Stephen Slick from AE2S was present to do that. Great feedback from the Basin Commission and ex officio members on that potential. Certainly, as we all know, it's a large task, and I think the regulatory agencies from Minnesota were questioning why they maybe hadn't been brought in yet, but because we're really at the early stages in that, their time will come. Feedback about making sure we expand it to as large as we think we might need, because as we've said, we don't want to expand that boundary once it's set in stone. And then the Red River Basin Commission gave updates on the Netley-Lebu Marsh Restoration Pilot Project and the Long-Term Flood Solutions update from Ted Priester from the Basin Commission. I did leave that meeting for a while to go to an update. Thank you so much to Representative Keeler for being really generous with their time over the last week, having meetings with so many stakeholders. This one in particular was to talk about our out-of-home placement and the county, but also our stakeholders. And I think that discussion fed into the discussion that Commissioner Krabenoff and Commissioner Gross attended yesterday with Representative Liebling. Really good updates from staff on the placement snapshot and our resources that we have. Representative Keeler asked a hypothetical. What are you missing? What are the components that you're needing? It seems Clay County has been quite responsive to addressing the needs, as we've talked about with expansions with our juvenile detention facility. And from that brainstorming session, really opened the door to continued conversation about what legislatively Clay County can ask for to deal with that. We've talked about a potential residential transition facility. What would that look like? How can we keep kids in Clay County continuing to go to school in Clay County and be closer to their the folks that are their case managers and their families? So I think we might have more discussion in October about having more continued conversations with Representative Keeler on that. But certainly, it's a really painful subject. As we know, there are lots of kiddos in transition, and Clay County does its best to address the needs as the community, as I said earlier in this meeting. I went back to the Basin Commission meeting that afternoon for their board meeting. Commissioner Pepcorn from Fargo served as chair for that, and we did have a normal agenda. We had to approve a few more things because we had a lack of a quorum earlier in the summer, but this was my first meeting serving as a board member on that, and really grateful for the opportunity for Minnesota, particularly Clay County, to have a representation on that board. In the last piece would be in January, they have their annual conference, the Red River Basin Commission Land, Water, and International Conference will be in West Fargo, January 16 through 18. And because so many of the things that this board does revolves around natural resources and the water, I think it's important as many of us go to that as possible. The next day, I attended the Clay County Extension Committee AFNR dialogue discussion, taking some of the comments that we've had from Commissioner Ebinger about the Master Gardeners Program, making sure that's addressed in the job description. Because Randy had been there so long, there are a lot of components that we need to address time and making sure that it's allocated in the way in which the board thinks that the most need is there. So appreciate that opportunity. We do have interviews this afternoon for the other position that's open. And then I, as the executive committee of Lakeland Mental Health Center, worked through the yearly review of our executive director, Donna Baker, at Lakeland. Certainly from my perspective and Clay County's perspective, she's done a great job to expand the services and meet the need, not only within Clay County and our departments, but also all of the counties in which Lakeland serves. And then yesterday, I attended the Metro COG Executive Committee meeting. We did have a final approval of the reimbursement expenses for our executive director, who just took over the reins with that retirement. We approved an offer for a letter of employment for a new assistant transportation planner, and talked about enrolling MetroCog in NDPERS. And currently, MetroCog is not part of a state-sponsored retirement system with their employees. They looked at the Minnesota retirement system, but also the North Dakota, to figure out which one would be best. It doesn't anticipate, they did have a private contribution to a retirement, so it doesn't appear like that it'll be a large change, but just wanting to make sure, since so many government entities are part of that, that they're in that. So that was the recommendation. And then the other piece that is of interest to this board is we did authorize to distribute an RFQ seeking, excuse me, I misspoke. It was not an authorization, it was an amendment to the UPWP, the updated work plan, for the Moorhead I-94 20th Street interchange traffic analysis. And I believe that concludes my report. Sorry.
Okay, most of my meetings that I've gone to have already been covered by somebody. The work group on Tuesday, Wednesday, the FM diversion tour that we took, Jenny and I took. The only thing I've got to add to that is, wow, what a plan they've got. You really got to go out there and look at it to appreciate what they're doing and the protection that they're gonna provide for the community. Thursday, the out-of-home meeting that we had with, it was just a group of people getting together there, but the Representative Heather Keeler was there, and she really offered a lot of insight into some of the funding and stuff like that. Make me wonder, I know we've got grant writers, everybody, I think each department writes their own grants, but sometimes I wonder whether we need someone's job to be a grant writer or something like that, to look in different departments to see all the grants that are available, whether we're missing out on some money or not, and I don't know, maybe a good position or not, or appoint someone to do all that, I don't know. But that seemed to me like some of the grants that Heather was talking about that we're not applying for, or something like that. It's just, they're out there. And yesterday, again, the continuation of the out-of-home placement with Representative Levy and from Health and Finance. Again, she just wanted to know what can they do for us. So it was just an informative meeting of what a lot of our stuff is with our kids. They're in homes, I don't know, 4 hours away, and they have to have a monthly visitation. And we spend a lot of time on the road visiting some of these kids that are in foster homes that are in different placements 4 hours away, and something we could do to bring them closer to home. So those are my meetings. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Wednesday, met with Darren on a series of county issues. I also had a department head evaluation. On the 7th, participated in the Clay County Joint Powers meeting that has been well addressed. On the 7th, they also met in the out-of-home placement stakeholders discussion that's been discussed with by Commissioner Gross and Commissioner Mojo. Attended there. I do think, it was Representative Keeler, I guess really came in a position of advocating for the needs, specifically for those of the youth and in potential PRTF situations. I think that one of the things that was clear through both of the meetings that have been addressed is that this board has taken a very proactive stance on many of the issues that we've discussed, whether that's through Lakeland Mental Health and the River Project, whether that's there through our nursing and ACH and the services that are provided there, the juvenile center and LSS and the trauma therapy that they have. And so, again, I think many of the commitments that other counties are seeking to do, you've already made, and continue to look to strengthen those. So I think that's great. The PRTFs that both the commissioner psychiatric residential treatment facilities that have been shared by the commissioners that were discussed. I think that one of the things that James and his staff have done an amazing job is really working with Rhonda to attempt to keep as many kids in our community as they had. And through the conversations with this board, with James and with Rhonda, we've done that. We've been successful in that. Having said that, there is another level of kids that need additional services that can't be met in our facility. And I think that was really one of the focuses of the two meetings that we looked at. And so that was appreciated not only Representative Keeler and Representative Liebling, but also our other partners within our community from Solutions and the village who are also present. On the 8th, I participated in a MACA Region 7 meeting. We talked about the impacts of legislation such as the impact of earned sick and safe time that'll start January 1. We talked about some of the updates of communities and counties that are taking action in regards to cannabis. And then we also talked about some levy updates. I'll just say based on the discussion that we had, we're going to be one of the lowest in the region. There's some counties that are facing some significant challenges that right now are going to probably set preliminary levies in double figures. And so, that was it's always good to get together with that group. The 11th, I participated in the out-of-home placement, which has been well covered. Also, yesterday, I participated in the Becker County, Clay County solid waste discussion. And I know we've talked about it before, but I really just want to again give credit to Corey. He's really a proactive thinker, problem solver, and it's been great to see him looking at how we do things and bring new opportunities that provide better service but also savings. So thank you to him. And I think, just a reminder, we're going to be at the AMC Policy Conference starting tomorrow through Friday. And so we'll be your committees will be looking to establish the legislative ideas that we hope to be dealing with in 2024. That concludes my report.
Mr. Milton, you have anything for us? No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jackie?
I do, Mr. Chair. So last week at the board meeting, there was a question regarding if we've addressed the board meeting that overlaps the annual AMC conference, which is December 5th. And from reviewing past meetings and minutes, the board has only taken action on the meeting preceding the Board of Equalization. So we have not addressed that December 5th meeting, and we also haven't addressed the meeting preceding the Truth in Taxation, which I believe is proposed December 12th.
Can we have a proposed action item for next week on those?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, we could do this. We've done it in the past where we've done it as part of my committee assignments. If the board wishes, we can certainly do that next week.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to prolong this meeting any longer, but I've had a little bit of time to digest some of the comments that have been made by our board today regarding the SRO officers, and they've been excellent comments. And I normally don't report on football games as part of my committee, but I attended a football game on Saturday night where they gave a special thank you to some police officers in Fargo. And there was I'm guessing maybe 13,000 to 15,000 people were at that game, and there was a standing ovation for those people that were involved with that incident. And I just want to say that started off as a routine car accident, and it turned into one of the greatest tragedies that ever happened in the city of Fargo. And if it hadn't been for the training of a particular officer, that could have been much worse. That's what we're talking about with our SRO officers that are in our schools. Trained officers to help prevent things like that from happening. I've worked side by side with law enforcement in my entire political career, and they've been nothing but special, outstanding individuals who care about this community. We have bad apples in everything. I don't know that we should be writing legislation because of Derek Chauvins of the world. And I think that every intention that these officers do, and the same with the Moorhead Police Department. I've worked with them. We worked on them side by side with them when we were creating this new law enforcement center and correctional facility. They would just as soon not have to bring anybody to that facility. But unfortunately, we have to under certain circumstances. And I just want to thank for the comments that were made there, and I'm thankful for our community in this area where we have high regard and high respect for law enforcement. And I just felt I needed to echo that. So.
I don't want to belabor this either, but I was a police officer for 40 years, 12 of it in this community. Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. Thank you, Commissioner Mojo, somebody who has children in the Moorhead School District, and somebody who speaks with such passion. Both of you, I appreciate it. The officers in Fargo weren't an exception. Derek Chauvin was. There's a fundamental factor as a chief and as a commander that I use in evaluating a police officer. And is that individual think that their life is secondary to the lives of the people they sworn to protect? Those three officers showed, the four officers showed that they felt that way. It was more important to protect the people around them than to protect themselves. I can say I've hired some of the people who were in our schools in Clay County. I've worked with them. I know their motivation. And there's not a deputy or an officer on the Moorhead Police Department or in any of our departments, I can say this comfortably, that values their own safety above the safety of the people around them, but particularly those SROs. They love these kids, and these kids love them back. It's like a good teacher. And if they can't establish that rapport, you pull them out. Doesn't necessarily mean they aren't good cops. These are special people we've got in our schools. And I think I'm not going to question the motivation of people that wrote this legislation. I'm sure their motives were good. They want to protect kids. I think they were ill-informed, and I think it's a bad place to describe a police officer's use of force. It needs to be clarified. And nobody's a villain in this, but this is something that deserves a special session. And if I were a parent, I'd probably be up at the state capitol screaming. But these kids deserve the kind of people that the law enforcement agencies in this state have been putting in place there. So I'll get off soapbox too, but I want to tell my two fellow commissioners that addressed this today how moved I am. They may quit giving you the paycheck, but you never quit being a police officer, not after 40 years. And what's been going on, it's been difficult. And your words are a comfort. Thanks.
Any other comments? We're adjourned.